Welcome to the Health by Haven podcast. I'm your host, Haven Quinlan. If you're a multi-passionate wellness enthusiast, then you're in the right place. I'm obsessed with learning as much as I can about the wellness world, and I want to share that with you. Each episode will dive into various aspects of health and wellness through inspiring and informative guest interviews with some solo episodes thrown in. Tune in for all things health, and let's have some fun, shall we? Is your home in need of a refresh? I don't know about you, but I love reimagining and redesigning my space. If you're wanting to liven up your space and level up your decor, be sure to check out Arranger Paints on Etsy. The shop is full of beautiful paintings, many inspired by nature, and all sure to give your home a custom feel. The paintings also make great housewarming or birthday gifts. I've gifted paintings from the shop and have a Ranger Paints artwork in my loft. As a special thank you for supporting the Health by Haven podcast, you can get 10% off your order with code HXH10. You can find the full collection of work at arrangerpaints.etsy.com or scroll down to the show notes for the link. Demi Fair is a gut-brain health practitioner who helps people break free from the IBS-stress cycle without relying on restrictive diets, complicated protocols, or endless supplements. Through her signature method, she focuses on the often overlooked key to lasting gut healing, the nervous system regulation. By combining somatic therapy, trauma healing, and nutritional support, Demi helps her clients find deep, sustainable relief so they can enjoy life fully without fear of their symptoms getting in the way. I learned so much from this conversation with Demi. It was super fascinating. She gives so many tangible resources for ways to help support your gut health. So tune in. I know you're going to love this chat with Demi. All right, Demi, I'm so excited to get to chat with you today on the Health by Haven podcast about all things gut-brain connection, health, wellness, and otherwise. So thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, I want to get started. For anyone who's listening who hasn't found your account on Instagram, hasn't worked with you before, can you give us a little background? Tell us a little bit about yourself, about your gut health journey, and why you became interested in working in this realm.
Absolutely. It's a long story, so I always
That's great.
Try to keep it a little bit reeled in if I can. But for me, my own experience with gut issues started from infancy. Like if you ask my mom, she'll be like, oh yeah, you were constipated from the time you were an infant. And so that journey with some, variety of gut symptoms pretty much spanned like the first 30 years of my life. And through that time, I explored a lot of different methods for trying to figure out like why I was dealing with chronic constipation and bloating. And like when I was younger, I get sick a lot. And then as a teenager, it was just like more like stomach pain and different things. And I went down, some typical routes where, maybe they gave me laxatives, a fiber supplement. And I found that just wasn't helping. And, of course, throughout a lot of this time, too, I dealt with like a lot of anxiety as well. Like my mom will also tell you I was always a highly sensitive kid. I'd get really easily overwhelmed. I used to experience like anxiety about things and even like some OCD tendencies when I was younger. And I think like once you kind of become a teenager, some of that stuff just becomes way more apparent to you. You start to like really realize what you're struggling with. So I definitely was struggling with anxiety and like body image issues, and I just could never slow down. I was always busy, always going, and, having these really severe gut issues. And so it kind of got to this point probably around the time of 15 that I just was so miserable, and I knew there just had to be another way because the doctors really had nothing for me. They'd be like, you have IBS, take a laxative, take a psyllium husk. And I was just feeling like that wasn't doing anything. Mm-hmm. luckily at this time, my first job, I was working at this like natural foods co-op. So I was like starting to learn a bit about food and healthy food. And I met this one woman who helped me eliminate some things from my diet and start some natural supplementation. And it helped me. It was like the first thing that really helped me for a bit. And I was like, oh, wow, that's the answer for me. Right.
Hmm.
And so I did that for a little while, feeling a lot better, got into college, and like all my symptoms came back, even though I was still on this, restricted diet and taking a lot of the supplements. But of course, I was not really taking care of my body. I was, not getting enough sleep. I was very, used to just doing, going, doing a lot of things all the time, just like burning myself out because I'm a very social person as well and partying a lot. And so I went deeper into the nutrition path, like, oh, I gotta, get even healthier with my nutrition, cut more things out, try more supplements, and again, found like some relief for a bit, started traveling. It's just kind of that same story, right? Like things would help for a little bit and then my symptoms would come back. So I went like deeper into that world and I eventually ended up trying everything over 2 decades. All the different kind of restrictive elimination diets you can do, tons of different kinds of testing, all the different protocols that one might recommend given the different things that I found imbalanced in my microbiome or, with my stomach acid or whatever it may be. And again, I just found myself not totally getting better and just feeling like these gut issues were just kind of ruling and controlling my life. And that's when I started to also look at the role anxiety played in my life and some of what I struggled with there. So that's when I first really understood the connection between gut health and mental health. That was a bit
Hmm.
of a light bulb moment for me. So then I kind of got deeper into the world of like, well, let me try meditating more. Let me try all these like different healing arts and journaling and Reiki and massage and talk therapy and different things. And again, all of these modalities have a beautiful, beautiful place, but nothing was quite really getting to the root of what I was struggling with. And so it was when I went deeper into learning about the gut brain connection. I went and became a nutritional therapy practitioner. I was really supported in that realm for myself. I started to work with clients and see that they were kind of dealing with the same thing. Like they were doing all these really good things with diets and supplements and just their overall health and lifestyle, but they were still struggling. And as I got deeper into that, what's going on here with this, truly with the gut and the gut brain connection, that's when I started to realize the role of the nervous system. And
Hmm.
it all started to click. And I had studied the mind body connection back in college. I was introduced to some of that then, but it really sunk in for me. It was this big light bulb moment. And I realized, the dysregulation I had lived in most of my life, the chronic stress that I had lived in most of my life that started from a really young age and had kind of been modeled to me and passed down to me. And then it all made sense as to why I could never really get past these symptoms, why they developed in the first place. And once I started going down that path and really working with my nervous system and kind of understanding the interconnectedness of everything in my mind body, I started to find true healing. And then I went and became a somatic experiencing practitioner to be able to really support my clients with that realm of things. And at this point now, I've been totally free of symptoms for 5 years, I think it is, after
Wow.
like 30 years of dealing with them. And, with that, been able to bring back all of the foods that I avoided for so long and had fears around and, go through stress and go do all the activities I love and travel without any issues. So, once I discovered this framework and this pathway that works so well for me, I turned that into, this framework that I now offer to others and help walk them through.
Okay, thank you for giving us that background and sharing a bit about your story. I really feel like you're speaking to the depths of my soul because, I think all of
Mm,
us, everyone interested in the world of health or wellness, one way or another, something has brought them there, right? And
yeah.
And I can certainly relate to your IBS struggles and different doctors just trying to prescribe a medication to eliminate your symptoms, which I think there's a time and a place for that,
Hmm.
certainly. And we're so lucky to be living in the world of modern medicine, but it's frustrating when you're like, well, I don't want to be taking this every single day for the rest of my life. Like, I need to understand why this is happening. And so I love that you have made this connection to like mental health and anxiety and the gut brain connection. And that's something that I'm like kind of really starting to understand. And so for people who maybe have not like heard about this at all, can you give us kind of like a 101? How is our nervous system interconnected with our GI system? Why are the gut and the brain connected?
Absolutely. I love talking about this. So, um, so I'll just start by speaking to like our gut and brain are very much interconnected and they're constantly communicating with each other and speaking to each other 24/7. I talk about it like it's a multi-lane highway that's sending information back and forth. The gut is sending a ton of sensory information to the brain to let it know like what's going on down there. And the microbiome and our microbes also are sending information as well. And then the brain sends information back to just maybe help the gut direct its function a little bit. And so we can break that down even further and see that, our brain hosts what we call the central nervous system. And our gut hosts what we call the enteric nervous system. So our gut actually has its own nervous system. And it's the second largest cluster of neurons behind our brain. So it's often referred to as our second brain. And many of you have probably experienced this nervous system when you get butterflies in your stomach, or you get bad news and you feel like a pit in your stomach, or you feel nauseous. That's the nervous system at work there. That's all those neurons that get activated then. So the gut's own nervous system is collecting all this information and communicating with our central nervous system, and they're talking back and forth. But we can take it even deeper, and we can see that the way that they're communicating is what's called the vagus nerve. That's one of the main communication pathways that make up that multi-lane highway. Now, the vagus nerve is what helps us respond and recover from stress. It helps us come into our nice, like, rest and digest state. And it also controls a lot of digestion. It's what tells our gut, like, hey, we're about to eat. It's time to get things a moving. And I'm going to take it one step further. I know this can become a lot, but so we have our brain's own nervous system communicating with our gut's own nervous system through the vagus nerve. Now, when I talk about the nervous system and I talk about like nervous system regulation, or if you hear anyone talking about that, they're referring to what we call the autonomic nervous system. This is what controls our entire life experience. It, is what is constantly kind of scanning our environment for danger, for threats, for stress. It wants to keep us alive. And over our life, it ends up shaping a lot of our beliefs and thoughts and patterns and whatnot. So our autonomic nervous system plays a huge role in our life. Now, the vagus nerve is a big part of that autonomic nervous system, and so is our gut's own nervous system, the enteric nervous system. So the system that controls how we respond to stress is very much interconnected with our gut's nervous system and the way that our gut and brain communicate. So this is why it's so essential that we understand what's happening in our autonomic nervous system, because whatever state of that nervous system that we're in is going to impact how well we digest our food and how well our brain and gut are able to communicate.
Okay, that was such a great breakdown that I think is like really, I know it's like so much information, but I think that was really digestible. And I think so many people probably are completely unaware that these two systems are intertwined and talk to each other all day, every day. So, for those of us living in the 21st century in the US,
Hmm.
in the like super fast paced go, go, go world, like, talk to us about
Yeah.
how we like manage that where we're still getting things done every day, but not like completely overwhelming our digestive system and our nervous systems.
Absolutely. So, yeah, there's just the fact that our modern world is kind of chronically stressed, is how I might put it. Like, we live in more of a what we would call a sympathetic state. So that's one of the branches of the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system. Some of you have probably heard of the term fight or flight
Mm.
or rest and digest. So our modern world's a little bit more in that kind of chronic fight or flight. We, love being busy. We work a lot. We do a lot of things. And, even just like use of screens and social media and everything, a lot of those things are kind of constantly keeping us in a bit of that fight or flight state, which over time can, signal a period of chronic stress to our nervous system. So there's one thing that we keep in mind, and I will mention without trying to go too deep into this, and we can definitely cover this a little bit further, but a lot of us, our nervous systems are kind of getting programmed in the early years of our life. So we might have certain patterns that our nervous system already takes on. Like me, for example, I was kind of already in that chronic stress state. Like my nervous system just kind of went into a flight response because of, what was passed down to me from my own parents, maybe what I experienced in my life growing up and in my environment. And so, if we already are a little bit more, have a tendency towards maybe like my example, like a flight response, and then you add the demands of modern life, we might end up being more stressed than we even realize because over time we kind of adapt to, getting used to just how things are. But our system is pretty ancient. It doesn't know that, it's just a email that we got from our boss at the end of the day, like needing something. It's like, oh my gosh, this is a threat. It could be a tiger that's chasing
Yeah.
you. Like we have to remember our system, especially that survival system of the nervous system, is still pretty old school. It doesn't have the understanding that our brain does. So we just want to keep that in mind and just consider our stress bucket, right? So what are all the things that add to our stress bucket in the day? And that could be, poor sleep. Maybe we didn't eat enough food. Maybe we didn't get enough movement. Maybe we're over exercising and pushing our body too much. Maybe we're going through stress at work or stress in a relationship. Maybe we're, just having some things come up that are feeling a little bit more triggering. And so just really considering all that's on your plate and what's adding to your stress bucket throughout the day. And the idea is that we're finding things throughout the day that can help release some of that. And many of us have really beautiful tools, right? Like time with loved ones, creative pursuits, time outdoors, getting movement. Some of us might have certain practices like yoga, meditation, journaling. All of these are really wonderful. But if our system is maybe kind of a little bit more geared like I was, go, 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 do, 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 like slowing down is really not safe or hard, or like maybe we can't do that as much because of the demands of our life. We're a parent, we have a busy job, there's a lot going on. What I really love to utilize is what I call like somatic or body-based practices. These are ones that speak directly to our nervous system and help actually signal to it that we're safe, we're not being chased by a tiger, and allow us to move that survival energy coming up in our system through in a really safe way.
Okay, you kind of like went into my next question
Ah,
even. So that was great because I'm thinking like, okay, for instance, if someone's stress response is showing up as IBS, whether it's one end of the spectrum or another, or someone else's stress response is showing up something totally different, like how can people recognize that they're listening and they're like, oh, wait, like maybe I am more stressed than I think? Because I feel like in my mind, oh, it's not that bad. But then something else coming up, like how can they start recognizing it when it kind of shows up different for everybody?
so common actually to say, oh, I'm not that stressed. And maybe your body is telling a different story. Um, because again, we adapt really well to these states that are trying to keep us alive and, make sure we're safe. That's essentially what they're doing. So I'll go through a couple different things that you might just notice in your physical, mental, emotional self, and maybe even digestive. Um, so say you're in more of a fight or flight state. We can kind of break that down. A flight. So I always kind of think of it as like just trying to notice like what might be happening in your body. So if we're in like a flight response, we might notice like our heart rate increase. We might notice our breath is pretty shallow. We might notice a lot of tension in our body, often like shoulders, neck, jaw. We might notice like even like energy through our arms or heat through our arms. So those are some of the physical things you might start to pay attention to. Often more on like a mental side, that's going to be more anxious thoughts, or we're ruminating, or we're kind of overthinking. We might feel panicked. We might feel like we just can't slow down. There's too much to do. Maybe it feels like really uncomfortable to slow down and do nothing. That can be really common. Just like our mind feels really, really busy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's one thing. If we're in a fight response, this one's pretty obvious. You might feel really irritable, maybe a bit frustrated, maybe even angry. You might even notice some of that, like same kind of like body symptoms, right? We can still have like energy coming through our arms and legs, maybe heat, maybe the shortness of breath and like the tension through the body. And in like more of a fight or flight state, this is where I see a lot more people have like constipation issues.
Mm-hmm.
And bloating, gas, undigested food, or just IBS, IBS-C. Now, there are some other states of our nervous system that can be stressed states. The other one I'll share about that's common is what we call a shutdown state. So this is where we're kind of on the other side of this. So we're going to feel a bit more depressed, down. Maybe we're like feeling really burnt out. Maybe we have no energy. We have brain fog. We might feel like no motivation. We might have thoughts that things are kind of like helpless, hopeless. We might feel like dissociated a bit. And, you can kind of just see that kind of happening through the body, just like really the body feels heavy. It feels sluggish, um, maybe a bit achy, like, you just kind of feel like you can't really move. And this is also where I see a little bit more of like the diarrhea side of things, the loose stool, undigested food in the stool. Like digestion is kind of shut off in both of these states. So those might be some things that indicate. And you might also pay attention to, some of the thoughts that you're having if they're telling a story of like, I'm super anxious. I got to get this done. Like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed, in the fight or flight,
Mm-hmm.
or, maybe in more of a shutdown state. Some of those thoughts might be like, I can't do it. There's no way. I'm past my limit. I'm so burnt out, or like it's helpless, it's hopeless. So there's a lot of different things that might be going on that can give us some more insight. And it just takes some practice to start listening.
Mm-hmm. This might be like a really big question, but
Sure.
it's almost like which came first, the chicken or the egg type scenario in this, because I do think, in the last decade or so, there has been a lot more focus on mental health, more conversations about it, which is awesome. But I think it might be challenging for people to understand, like, if they're feeling really anxious or if they're feeling like sad or depressed, is that causing the digestive issues, or are the digestive issues causing the mental health issues? You know what I mean? This might be too big of a question to
Absolutely.
tackle, but
No, and that's a great question. And that is something that can definitely be hard to piece apart because of that gut brain connection, right? Like,
mm-hmm.
the state of our gut and our microbiome can absolutely be influencing us to feel more anxious or depressed or stressed. And then, of course, when we're more anxious, depressed, or stressed, it can prolong the gut issues that we're experiencing. And it can be definitely hard to decipher, well, what came first? And that's where I like to look at the nervous system, because typically when we have certain thoughts or mental stress symptoms, I call them, or mental experiences, there's usually something that's happened first in the body or the nervous system that now the brain is trying to interpret what's going on, and it might interpret it as something that then causes that response of anxiety or causes that response of, depression, say.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I always just come back to the foundation of the nervous system. and making sure that that is supported, because I see this pretty well correlated in all the people I talk to. There's pretty clear correlations between what I end up hearing is going on in their mental and physical symptoms in their nervous system. And so that's where I think if we focus on supporting that piece and helping the nervous system find more regulation and find more resiliency and not get stuck in these states it might be getting stuck in, then that can have a positive influence on both our mental and digestive health and that overall gut-brain communication, even if we don't understand maybe what's, came first or what's truly triggering the other more.
That makes sense. Do
Yeah.
you find with your clients that you work with that more often than not they're dealing kind of with one side of that or the other?
I would say more people are in sympathetic in the fight or
Mhm.
flight and dealing with more like anxiety, overwhelm, stress, obsessive thoughts, harsh inner critic, and definitely a little more of, I get a little bit more people with like the constipation side of things, the severe bloating. I definitely
Mhm.
have clients on the other side. And another thing I see often is cycling. So some
Mm.
of you, if you've ever experienced IBS, you might cycle between like constipation and diarrhea. You
Mhm.
might cycle between anxiety and depression. Very common. And so typically what's happening there is the nervous system's kind of stuck in this cycle between that sympathetic and then what we call dorsal vagal shutdown. And it's not finding its way back to regulation. This is because, our body's responding, to stress or a threat with fight or flight. That's what it's always going to respond to first. And if that stress doesn't pass and we're not able to actually respond to it appropriately and move on, our system's going to go, okay, well, I can't run away from this and I can't fight it. So I'm going to go to my last ditch effort and go to shutdown. And I know this sounds really dramatic, but we see this in mammals in the wild. Like if a predator's been chasing a prey animal and that, prey animal couldn't run away, couldn't fight, it's going to play dead. It's going to actually go into this response in the nervous system where it starts to shut everything down and disassociate from the body so that it will either maybe last ditch effort that the predator thinks it's not a good food option anymore, or if it is going to be its food option, it won't feel the pain as much. And that's the same nervous system we have. And I know we're not being chased by, predator animals, but again, our system can't really tell the difference. So sometimes when it just gets overwhelmed and it can't respond with fight or flight, that's where we go into shutdown. So this is typically people busy, 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 anxious, overwhelmed, and then they crash into burnout. And some people might even experience that in their day to day, right? You're busy, you're doing what you need to do all day. You get home and you're like, I can't do anything but like numb out and like drink or like scroll on my phone or, just eat a bunch of chocolate or whatever. Like a way to just kind of numb out. And that can
Mhm.
happen in someone's day to day.
Definitely. I think that the recognizing like the timelines could be different for people as
Yes.
well. So if people's nervous systems are kind of stuck between these two cycles, or they're stuck in one or the other even, say we're like your client and that's happening, like what are some of the things that you would recommend people start doing to kind of start to get back to that like regulated state?
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, one of the first things I always recommend is just learning about your nervous system, like
Mhm.
learning the language of your body. Because I know like nervous system regulation is becoming really popular. Somatics are becoming really popular. There's a ton of people online saying, hey, just do this somatic exercise and it will like heal all your stuff in 30 days. That could help, that can make you feel better, but it isn't really the full picture. We really actually just want to understand what's going on in our body and our nervous system and really identify what those different states feel like to us so that we can go, oh, I'm in a bit of a fight or flight right now, right? Or I'm in a bit of a shutdown and like understand maybe what triggers us into those and just learn our patterns and understand what those patterns have been all our life. because that really informs us on what might work best for us. From there, I really like to support clients with learning a bunch of different regulation tools that they can begin to use in their day-to-day life. I do somatic regulation tools. These are body-based tools that are very proven and effective to talk directly to the nervous system because our nervous system's all about being like shown and it's all felt sense. When we try to tell it to change, it doesn't work as well. So I like to provide clients with a variety of body-based somatic regulation tools that are, divided by the different states. So like here's tools if you know that you're in a flight response. Here are the best ones that help you actually move that flight energy through your body and come back to regulation. Same for
Mm.
fight, same for shutdown. And this is what helps them not only feel empowered that they can like go through things in their day and know how to support themselves in a really simple, effective way, but it's also helping the nervous system go, oh, okay, I'm actually safe. It's building what I would call like capacity over time so that we have a bigger window of tolerance so we can go through whatever demands of our modern life and our system isn't going off with the alarms.
Mm.
So that's kind of the foundation there. I also help clients, with supporting the vagus nerve and really strengthening the vagus nerve because that can be brought down over time with stress. And then, of course, I do like to go a lot deeper from there because I really like to consider the whole person and their life story and their health
Mhm.
history and identify if they did go through trauma in their life or they went through really chronically stressful times that their body still might be responding to and stuck in and help them release that. So that's where I bring in some of the deeper facilitated therapeutic work, like parts work or somatic experiencing and things like that.
Okay. So, say we're like in a flight response, what's like one or two things that you tell people like this is something you could like do at home, and obviously like working with somebody like you if they're having these symptoms and everything, I think is a amazing tool, but maybe they're looking for somebody and they're on somebody's wait list or whatever. Some tools they could implement like today that could help kind of like bring them back down from that fight or flight response.
Absolutely. So I love that you asked about that because one thing I think is so important for people to understand is that if your body's in fight or flight, it is getting ready to take action, right? It's getting ready to either fight something or run away. And so it's really important to understand that there's energy moving through the body that needs to move and be completed. And so often if we're feeling anxious and we, try to say, oh, just calm down, relax, take some deep breaths, maybe go like sit down and meditate, that doesn't really work because your
Mhm.
body is telling a very different story. It's saying, I need to run away or I need to
Mhm.
fight something. So this is where I like to really utilize things that help actually move the body and move things through. So, I mean, it can be as simple as like moving your body, like going for a walk, going for a run, going and lifting weights, especially if you're like angry. Oh man,
Mhm.
that's a great thing to do. Putting on music and letting your body just move, right? So anything like that. Um, some of the more like somatic tools I like could be anything that brings forward some sort of like shaking, right? Like it could be
Mhm.
as simple as like shaking one arm and then one leg at a time, or kind of like bouncing up and down on your heels, or just kind of shaking your whole body. That is actually what mammals do when they're, after they go through stress. You'll see mammals in the wild actually shake it off.
Mhm.
So that can be a really great thing to try. And, if you're in a place that you can't shake, right? Like some people are at their desk or they're like in public transport or something like that. You can also just like squeeze your legs back and forth or squeeze your arms back and forth or kind of like rub your hands down your arms or even like tapping legs back and forth. It may not be as like energy moving, but it can help a little bit more in that moment than just trying to be like, it's fine, calm down, go to the bathroom, splash some water on your face, things like that. But definitely the key here is like move the energy through in some way.
I love that take because I feel like every time I've ever heard someone talk about like, oh, you're anxious, they're like, you need to sit down and take some deep breaths. I'm like, no, I need
No,
to like get out of here. So I think that's so
absolutely.
helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I feel like I could talk to you all day long about this, but I want to make sure I'm like hitting all of the topics and things that you would recommend and want to chat with people about and make sure people know. So, am I missing anything that you're like, the people need to know this?
I talk about digestion as like a river metaphor. And so digestion begins in our nervous system, right? So the state of our nervous system that we're in, as I've kind of gone over, is going to greatly impact that. We want to be in a rest and digest state. This is what we might refer to as a ventral vagal state. So this is where kind of we're regulated, we're feeling pretty good. We're going to obviously digest all our food and be able to absorb all the nutrients from our food. But if we're either chronically in a fight or flight or a shutdown, or maybe that's where we're at just that day, or when we sit down to eat, that's going to have a really big impact on us. So, being considerate of what that looks like for you. And when you sit down to eat, if there's things that you are feeling that might indicate you're not in a regulated state, doing some little tools that can maybe help you a little bit come into a more regulated state. And of course, if it's something that's kind of more, across the whole day or across a lot of your life, that's where some of this deeper work I've been talking about comes in. But from there, we are going to look at our food and our brain's going to say, hey, it's time to eat, and kind of send the message. The vagus nerve is going to do its job and send its message down. Some of us might have some really negative beliefs about food. We might have a lot of food fears or anxieties, and that could impact digestion. From there, we're going to eat our food. We're going to chew. This begins the first mechanical chemical breakdown of food. And then it goes through the digestive process in a very particular order, right? Through our stomach, into the small and large intestine. And so when we look at digestion like this, like a river, it happens in this like downstream flow. And so like what I was getting stuck in for a long time in my life, and what I see countless people I talk to and all of my clients is, okay, I have these gut issues. I'm going to go get help. And they maybe go to a doctor, a naturopath, like a functional medicine practitioner. And they go, oh, well, something's wrong with your microbiome, right? We do this test like, oh, you have this dysbiosis or this imbalance. So let's put you on this protocol and this diet. Now, the issue I'm seeing there, and why people I feel like get stuck in that cycle of not feeling better, is because it's like as if there was an industrial plant dumping pollution in the source of the stream. Maybe someone has a dysregulated nervous system, or, past chronic or traumatic stress that's impacting them. And that pollution is going to flow downstream and impact everything along the way, right? And so a lot of the gut healing approaches are like they're coming to this like downstream area going, oh, there's pollution in this river. Like, let's clean it up. And they're cleaning it up right there. And maybe it gets clean for a little bit, but what happens if we don't address what's at the source? It's going to flow back downstream, impacting that stream again, the water quality and the ecosystem. And so that's where I see a lot of people getting stuck, because actually the microbiome, that's like a pretty low thing down in the stream. It's really important, but if we're not addressing some of these first parts in digestion that are building the foundation, that is why we might get stuck there forever, just like I did. So that's the way that I look at it, and have found that to be so helpful, because once we address what's starting at the start of the stream, it just improves everything downstream from there.
That's such a great analogy for people to like really understand and really picture like how interconnected everything is and like where it all starts. So thank you for sharing that. That was super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I am going to move us into some rapid fire, some final questions if you're
All
ready
right.
for it.
I'm ready.
All right. Morning or evening workout?
I've always been more of like an evening workout, but I've been recently moving towards the mornings a little bit because I am loving that.
Yay. All right.
Yes.
Running or walking?
Walking. Yeah.
Lifting or body weight workouts?
Lifting. Love lifting. Yes.
Indoor or outdoor workouts?
Outdoor. I'm a big outdoor athlete. Skiing, mountain biking, climbing, everything. So yeah, that's my jam for sure.
So fun. Juice or smoothie?
Smoothie, no doubt.
Coffee or matcha?
Yeah, coffee. I love my coffee. Yep.
Salad or bowl?
Oh, definitely a bowl. Yeah, so much variety there. A little bit heartier. Yeah.
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 Pizza or pasta?
Pizza, no doubt.
Tacos or quesadilla?
Tacos.
An early riser or night owl?
Uh, I say I'm somewhere in between.
All right.
But I do tend to be a little bit more of a night owl, even though I try to be a little bit more of an early riser. But I think I just need to accept my body's like that middle ground.
Go with your natural clock.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, Demi, I so enjoyed getting to chat with you today. You gave everybody so much really great, tangible information. So I very much appreciate your time. And if people are listening and they need to get more, they want to work with you, where can they find you and how could they work with you?
Absolutely. So you can definitely come find me on Instagram. I'm sure that will be linked. It's at trustyourgut.health. Send me a DM. Of course, there's a link in bio with everything you need there, but also just come peruse the content, get to know a little bit more of what I share. Or always at my website, trustyourguthealth.com. That's where you can find out just more about the main way I work with people through my program, Gut Brain Healing Toolkit. And I always love to hop on calls with people or chat in the DMs and just find out what's been going on for you, what you've tried, where you want to be, see if we'd be a good fit for working together. And then, while you're in either of these places, I do have some free resources. I have my quiz, which helps identify what state of your nervous system you might be dominant in and how it's impacting your digestive issues, your mental health, your emotional health. I break it all down for you and I give you some of those somatic tools that are appropriate for that state that you can get started with. So that's a really great place to start and see how that all connects for you. And then I run a free masterclass where I just kind of break all this down further and really help you understand, why a lot of these gut healing protocols haven't been working, break down the digestive process, and teach you about my 5-step framework I've developed to heal my IBS and help dozens of clients as well. So another great place to get some more information.
Perfect. And yes, I will definitely link all of that in the show notes. So everyone listening, you can scroll on down and get all of those great resources and work with Demi. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was really, really fun to come here and talk with you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Health by Haven podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to give the show a 5-star rating and leave a review. It makes such a huge difference in reaching new people and spreading the joy of healthy living. I would also be so appreciative if you subscribe to the show in the listening app of your choice so you never miss an episode. Your support truly means the world to me. Have a happy, healthy day, and I'll talk to you again soon.